Hey folks, on the Fallon Forum today we're going to discuss drones and the Obama administration's secrecy around the issue. We're also going to talk about medical marijuana. We're going to talk about a little bit about gun violence. That just won't go away. And also going to recognize a wonderfully famous Iowan who passed away this week.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Lovely day here, folks, in the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent. Welcome to the Fallon Forum, broadcasting live from Webcast One Live in the Skywalk in downtown Des Moines. Later in the program, Ray Lakers is going to join us. We're going to talk about medical marijuana. We're also going to talk a little bit about this NRA attack video, which even Chris Christie is calling despicable. We'll talk more about that. But at what point do we say, okay, the NRA, they're not even a credible source of anything anymore? We're also going to talk, we're also going to recognize Abigail Van Buren, who passed away, a great Iowan. I think so. And also we're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. Just a teeny tiny bit about the Super Bowl. All right, but first, we're going to talk about something much more important than the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about the use of drones, the escalating use of drones in foreign policy. And we're going to talk specifically with Ben Stone with the American Civil Liberties Union. with Jeffrey Weiss with the Catholic Peace Ministry. Gentlemen, welcome to the Fallon Forum.
Thank you, Ed.
Good to
And
be
step
with you,
right
Ed.
up to that mic, Jeff. Do not be afraid.
Thank you, Ed.
The mic will not bite you. It will not soil your gloves. Everybody, Jeffrey's got those gloves that he's so dang proud of. You're going to wear them in July? That's what I want to know.
I'm all the time.
All the
And
time.
they're good at catching footballs, too.
Okay,
I can catch them
good. Well,
anywhere.
maybe you can
throw,
sub for
throw
Tom
me a
Brady
football on
if
the
he gets
skywalk,
hurt.
I'm catching it.
All right. Well, anyway, serious stuff. Drones. I mean,
right.
the administration's use of drones has come under attack. He has upped the use of drones over the Bush administration. There are some who are arguing that it's a good idea, but even those who might feel that there's some justification are concerned at the level of secrecy surrounding the use of drones. What do we say about that?
Well,
You want to go first, Jeff? I don't care.
Okay, I would just say that we have to give credit to Stanford University Law School and New York University Law School for a long investigation that both of these institutions engaged in. Living Under Drones is the culmination of several months of study by some real good legal minds in the United States.
That's the title of the report?
Yes.
Living
yes,
Under Drones?
Living Under Drones. And this got a lot of international media attention, much less in the corporate-owned and funded United States media. And at the same time, this has prompted what many people in the United States do not know. The United Nations Human Rights Commission last October started to investigate the legality in international law of drones. So I just wanted to right away start out the conversation by noting the two law schools and their report, which may have given impetus to a much larger study that the United Nations is now currently engaged in, which is investigating the legality of targeted assassination or extrajudicial killings.
So I had an email this morning, or a message this morning, from somebody saying, well, the secrecy surrounding drones makes sense because you don't want to disclose who is being targeted, where they are, and all that sort of thing. And my response was, well, that's not the issue. The issue is we're not getting information about the use of drones after the fact. We don't have information about who's being killed. And a lot of other questions. Is that the crux of the problem as you see it?
Well, there's a lot of problems, Ed. There was a decision by a federal district court judge January 3rd, just a few weeks ago. And the federal judge was ruling on a open records request under the Freedom of Information Act by the ACLU and the New York Times. And the judge actually, kind of unusual, this federal judge basically said, I hate what I'm saying here. I don't agree with it. It is Alice in Wonderland. But she basically said that because of the wording in an exception to the open records law of the federal government, deliberative discussions or something, I could tell you exactly what it is, but deliberative discussions of the executive branch are exempt from the federal open records law. And what she's basically saying is, so here you have a request from citizens to learn how it is that the government justifies or discusses or what kind of criteria they use, what's their legal reasoning, all of these things about the deliberate killing of American citizens who are not engaged in combat operations against the country without any kind of warrant or judicial permission or whatever. And so we literally have a situation where we've been told, and the ACLU is planning to appeal.
Right.
But the problem is that the open records exception seems to engulf this entire idea that our federal government can kill people, including American citizens, abroad who have done nothing that has been proven. And we know from articles that it's not only whether or not it's legal, but the extra damage, the so-called collateral damage. There was an article by Naomi Wolf that talks about that there's been 10 militants of high-level importance that have been killed by the 300 drone attacks in the last, under the Obama administration. And in those, in order to kill those 10 militants, they've killed 193 children
But now,
and 1,400 civilians.
Okay, now That's my question: is how do we know that if the Obama administration is withholding information?
Yeah, they would deny all that.
Yeah,
that's through the Guardian.
So the Obama administration denies that we've killed 10 civilians for every one actual terrorist we've killed. So
it's actually 100.
What?
It's actually 100.
Okay,
it's more like 100.
Wow. But the source again, where is the information? Who's verifying that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the Guardian, I think, is where
are they getting it from?
I mean, Jeff can speak.
Well, I would say the New York University Law School and Stanford Law School numbers were a little bit lower, a little bit, smaller number of civilian to militant ratio for what that's worth. However, we don't know. And when the New York Times and the ACLU tries to find out what is the legal rationale for the assassination of a United States citizen overseas, and we do not have the right to have that information. Your friend who wrote that email, I would just pose, is that the kind of country that you want to live in? I mean, this is, talk about slippery slope. I mean, this is a dangerous precedent. And you also have New York University and Stanford, I keep repeating this, but they use the T word. They use the word terror because they said that children in Pakistan who live under drones, who live under these flying machines that sort of rain hell and death from the sky periodically, live in a state of terror. They use the T word.
Yeah.
And I happen to be Catholic. I don't think it's a moral thing for people who call themselves Catholics or Christians to terrorize children overseas. Maybe that's just me. Doesn't quite fit in very well with love your enemy and do good. So. These are dramatic legal questions, moral questions, and I think they're starting to be asked. Probably a little bit more so.
Well, you got the New York Times joining the ACLU in a lawsuit. That's significant. You got two very prestigious universities weighing in on the matter. And I want to ask a couple other questions, but let me open the phone lines up as well. 244-0077, folks. If you'd like to join the conversation with Ben Stone with the American Civil Liberties Union and Jeffrey Weiss with the Catholic Peace Ministry. Toll free, it's 855-244-0077. Was secrecy a problem under the Bush administration?
Yes. I mean, the drones kind of started under the Bush administration.
Right.
And, they're all going to keep it secret. One of the points about coming out from this district court judge ruling is that there's a call, and I think the Des Moines Register made the same call as the New York Times editorial did, that the Obama administration should simply, whatever legal win they can have, they need to step up and, as a responsible member of the international community, make this information much more a part of a transparent discussion, both here in America and internationally.
Well, my sense is if the drones were only killing known terrorists, then the administration would not hesitate to release that information. It's the so-called collateral damage and significant collateral damage, if we can go by the two university studies Jeff referenced. It's that collateral damage, and I almost hate to use that word. It's the innocent civilian people being killed, some of them U.S. citizens, that the administration does not want us to know about.
Well, and unfortunately, a couple of decades ago, to talk about targeted assassination would have frightened the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well,
and now it appears as if
becomes standard practice.
Yes.
Well, hey, I'm sure that your viewers are familiar with the legacy, the Bourne Identity, Bourne Legacy, all those films. That the first film was the Bourne Identity, I think. The whole idea is that there were people in the CIA that were secretly killing people with assassins, Jason Bourne being one of them. The whole premise of that film series is completely real, except that there's no accountability.
Yeah.
The CIA director is not getting arrested like he is at the end of the second film. We are doing what the Bourne Legacy movies demonstrate, except there's no accountability.
So back to what the federal judge ruled, and again, the ruling was against you, against the New York Times. You're going to appeal, but your assessment was that she felt it seems like reading between the lines. Go ahead,
I can just read it.
If it's brief. Yeah.
Judge McMahon, she said, the Alice in Wonderland nature of this pronouncement is not lost on me, but after careful and extensive consideration, I find myself stuck in a paradoxical situation in which I cannot solve a problem because of contradictory constraints and rules, a veritable catch-22. I find no way around the thicket of laws and precedents that effectively allow the executive branch of our government to proclaim as perfectly lawful certain actions that seem on their face incompatible with our Constitution and laws while keeping the reasons for their conclusion a secret.
Okay,
and yet she ruled for the government because of the language in the statute.
Right. So when did that statute come into existence?
Boy, when they opened federal law, I think it was the 1970s.
So it's been there a long time.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't something recent they slipped into the
And one of my
Patriot Act,
fears
for
is
example.
that someday the Congress, as horribly inept and corrupt as it is, that someday they're going to eliminate our right to open records and open meetings. And boy, you talk about the power of that statute is immense.
Is that a distant fear, or is there writing on the wall that might suggest that could happen?
It's just creeping paranoia for me. But I mean, it's never been mentioned, but it does.
But not unfounded.
And I think one of the good things is that there are people on the right and the left that both use it, and so there would be pushback if the right wing in the Congress wanted to get rid of the federal open records laws.
Yeah.
There'd be pushback from the
And Jeffrey,
two-party folks.
we're not merely talking about drones being used in Afghanistan. We're talking about Yemen. We're talking about Mali. Mali has never entered my awareness as a country where there was conflict. Apparently, there is now.
Yeah.
And I mean, are those the only three countries where we're using drones?
I'm not aware of drones being used in Mali. I could be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could be
I
wrong.
heard that.
I could be wrong. But I know that Yemen, yes. Pakistan, yes. The difficult aspect of this under international law is that those governments allow the United States to fly these drones. And they give the United States a wink and a nod. When civilians are killed, they moan to their own citizens. And that's the sketchy area of international law that perhaps the UN is not looking at. What the UN is looking at, though, is something called the Geneva Conventions, which is the extrajudicial killing, especially of civilians. And you talk about blowback. You have a lot of CIA people already talking about blowback. The Pakistani American who parked his Nissan Pathfinder in Times Square a couple of years ago and then was put on trial. We had explosives. An alert policeman stopped the thing from blowing up, which is good. When he was on trial, he said he went to Pakistan and he saw the effects of drones. And so he said, if you kill our children, I was going to kill your children. Well, this is blowback. This is what the CIA calls blowback. And, I think we should be awake in this country.
It's
when
what
these things are
Malcolm
going
X
on.
called chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah.
Well, and I think your title of the segment is "The Secret War of Drones" or whatever. This is coming. Yeah. This is already here in America. I mean, there's domestic use of drones. We don't have time to go into it in depth. But
I know there's been talk about them being used to monitor agricultural land for runoff and some of the
it's much more extensive than that. It's coming. There's several counties around the country in California and Texas that have actually requested permission. There was a federal law last February that we talked about before that expedited the ability of the FAA to authorize the use of domestic drones. And it's not just police and city governments; it's corporations. And the surveillance possibility. You imagine any rally, like an Occupy rally, or anytime you go outside the government building and you say, we don't like what you're doing, and there's drones flying around and they can follow everybody home. I mean, this is a real thing to be concerned about.
Yeah, plus it's gotten to 40 countries now have drone technology. And the other aspect of blowback is when weapons that you possess get into other people's hands and they're used against you. So that's coming to a theater near you.
And the industry that is producing these drones is going into Congress. They're throwing money at them to say, hey, look, create federal grants that get money out to the states. So they buy these drones because they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford them.
Right.
And so the federal money's flowing. Taxpayer money is making this industry possible. And what I think we need to be concerned about is we need to get in front of it. We don't have any drones that we know of in Iowa.
Right.
It's late this session,
Except
but maybe
the
next
EPA
session.
drones.
Yeah, I mean those operated by other entities, but I don't think there's any local police or anything using them yet. But we need, hopefully, maybe next session we can get a bill.
Well, let me ask you, what's
they can limit their use.
You mean a state
legislative bill?
State level?
There was a bill introduced in Florida 2 days ago by a couple of conservative members of their legislature to limit them. You need to have a warrant. There's certainly much like a regular warrant process.
I would think this would be a really good coalition builder between progressives
it would.
and Ron Paul types.
Yeah, I think it is.
One more question before we got to go to a break. The Iowa congressional delegation. Any response from them on this issue? What are they saying about it?
I don't.
Boy, I haven't heard anything from Harkin or Grassley or others. I suppose we could try to get a statement out of him, and we should.
Yeah. Well, we meaning all of us, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Particularly on the outside the country stuff. I don't think there's been a whole lot of discussion yet about the domestic, but it's coming. It really is.
Well, it seems appalling on a number of levels, and I hope there will be more. I know the ACLU will continue its efforts. Good luck with the appeal.
Yeah. And by the way, there's a national staffer at the ACLU office named Jay Stanley, and he is the expert on a lot of technology, privacy, and drones included. So if anybody ever would go there and just do a search for Jay Stanley, you'll find a lot of very interesting. It's cool stuff, but it's also very scary. We need to get it contained.
Ben Stone with the American Civil Liberties Union here in Iowa, and Jeffrey Weiss with the Catholic Peace Ministry joining us for a conversation about drones, the secret war, and the recent ruling on the lawsuit filed by the ACLU and the New York Times for disclosure of casualties that the Obama administration is refusing to release. There will be an appeal. We'll talk more about that, and we'll talk more about, too, the civilian use of drones, which should have a lot of folks concerned at all points of the political spectrum. We're going to move on to other topics in the second segment, but I do want to thank the Sierra Club and Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring the Fallon Forum, and I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway Market is at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. It's my grocery store, folks, and I recommend it be your grocery store as well. Keep your money local and support people who do the right thing in our community. And next week, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the latest scuff with Whole Foods executive CEO John Mackey, who apparently is comparing Obamacare to fascism. So you want to go shop at Whole Foods? Great idea. That'll go to John Mackey's salary, and he can continue to say crazy stuff about fascism and Obamacare. Or you can shop at Gateway Market. That'd be my suggestion. Again, a complete line of groceries, cosmetics, a lot of it from local sources, a wonderful breakfast, lunch, and dinner cafe, and catering as well. Folks, I'll be back in a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, Remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live, and thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together, and we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Dear Abby, my feet are too long. My hair's falling out, my rights are all wrong. My friends, they all tell me they're no friends at all. Won't you write me a letter? Won't you give me a call? Signed,
Dear Abby. Hey, folks, Abigail Van Buren passing away at age 94. Abigail Van Buren, better known as Dear Abby. Her actual name is, what is it? Phillips, Pauline Phillips. Interestingly, of course, as you might know, her sister, Epi Lederer, and Landers. Amazing story, those two. You know, and I got to admit, I didn't read Dear Abby too often, but when I did, I often found it interesting at any rate. Sometimes I was thinking, what is she thinking? But often like, well, she nailed that one. And I love these little snippets that were shared in this morning's news about her columns. Dear Abby, my boyfriend is going to be 20 years old next month. I'd like to give him something nice for his birthday. What do you think he'd like? Signed, Carol. Dear Carol, never mind what he'd like. Give him a tie. Dear Abby, what inspires you most to write? Ted. Dear Ted, the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Great comments. Dear Abby, I've been going with this girl for a year. How can I get her to say yes? Dawn. Dear Dawn, what's the question? Anyway, folks, Dear Abby, you got to love her. And the reason I bring her up is she's an Iowa native, Sioux City. She and her sister, of course, both from Sioux City. And they didn't lose track of it, didn't lose touch, rather, with their Iowa roots. They continue to stay engaged with their hometown. And again, a fascinating life. And I guess Pauline Phillips, again, dear Abigail Van Buren's daughter, has gone on to continue the column. So for what that's worth, I thought that was a worthy tribute. And I love the John Prine song. I've sung that before myself. That was John Prine doing his tune, Dear Abby. All right, more serious matters, folks. The NRA strikes back. Again, the president releasing a fairly gutsy, by modern standards, by contemporary standards. I mean, we're so used to Congress having no backbone, seeing nothing of substance or real depth come out of the federal government. To have the president propose gun control legislation, some that would come strictly from the executive branch, and the more meaty components, the assault weapons ban, the limitation on the size of magazines, and beefing up background checks, that stuff requiring congressional involvement. The fact that he's doing this is, to me, it seems unusual. It's surprising that we're getting this much substance. And again, I think a lot of people, and the polls are showing that for the most part, the public feels something needs to be done, and they latch onto these specifics. They support them. They support they support all three of the things I mentioned. So where's the NRA? Well, the NRA is not only opposed, obviously, but they're willing to stoop to levels that have Chris Christie calling the NRA's response reprehensible.
Are the president's kids more important than yours? Then why is he skeptical about putting armed security in our schools when his kids are protected by armed guards at their school? Mr. Obama demands the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, but he's just another elitist hypocrite when it comes to a fair share of security. Protection for their kids and gun-free zones for ours.
I mean, there are so many levels on which that is reprehensible. It's just a package of lies. The name calling, elitist hypocrite. I mean, I'm a regular critic of President Obama, but an elitist hypocrite. I mean, that is name calling. That's juvenile. At what point do we finally say, look, the NRA, you have discredited yourself as a reasonable contributor to the conversation on what to do about gun violence? I mean, I'm happy to see Chris Christie calling him out, and that's gutsy on his part. Anytime a potential Republican presidential candidate challenges the NRA or the anti-choice folks or the anti-gay crowd, that's a politician with some guts. Now, this is in no way, shape, or form an endorsement or even encouragement for Chris Christie to run, but calling it like it is, encouraging to see somebody in his position call out the NRA on this. And again, it's not like it's not like the average kid is the same as the president's kid or even Governor Christie's kid. I mean, yeah, when you're the president and you've got kids, I mean, those kids didn't choose for you to run for president. They're in a situation that requires some unique attention. So, I mean, for the NRA to do this, it's just disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And I would hope that reasonable people would say, look, you do not represent there are plenty of reasonable gun owners out there. Okay. I have friends who are reasonable gun owners. I am a reasonable bow and arrow owner. Okay. But these folks need to be challenged. This needs to be called out, and I think one way to do that would be, I almost wish I was an NRA member just so I could renounce my membership in the NRA. Looking at some of the stats, a lopsided 84% of Americans back broader background checks. Okay, now I don't remember what percentage of the of Americans own guns, but it's pretty darn high, and so even among gun owners, a big chunk of folks feel that the tougher background checks are in order. Okay? This is an Associated Press GFK, don't know what that means, poll, also found that nearly 6 in 10 Americans, 60% of Americans, want stricter gun control laws. 60%. Now, again, a bunch of them are gun owners, and they want stricter laws. A lot of police officers, a lot of law enforcement officials want tougher laws because, what good does it do you if the bad people are armed? I know the NRA is going to say, well, if you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. I'm so tired of silly arguments like that. I'm so tired of pry this out of my cold, dead hands. And now I have a new thing to be sick of and tired of, and that's the low level to which the NRA seems to be willing to go to attack the president. Instead of confronting the actual issues in his proposal, to attack the president by coming after his kids. That is just so rotten. And thank you, Chris Christie, for calling him out on it. Also, a majority of Americans also favor a nationwide ban on military-style weapons. So, all good. We'll see if I voted for President Obama this time around. I said, let's give him a second chance. I'm often disappointed. I've been disappointed on drones, obviously. But this is something, I'm feeling good about. Continue to push for some, even though it may not go far enough. Maybe it doesn't focus on all the right issues, but gosh, it is something. It's tangible. It's significant. Let's see what Congress can do with it. Okay, let's hope Congress can do something with it. And let's us keep the pressure on Congress to do something. 244-0077. Who do we got on line 2, Maddie?
We have Michael from Maxwell.
Michael, welcome to the program. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Ed, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm interested in your remarks about gun violence. I find that I completely agree with you about the NRA's disappointing response.
Yeah, disappointing would be putting it mildly to describe my reaction.
But I'm also a little disappointed in the president. It seems to me that Vice President Biden and President Obama have sort of kicked the solution down the road in terms of media violence. There's not much about the problem of media violence in the recommendations to Congress.
I would agree with you on that, Mike. I think that needs to be part of the conversation. I had 2 guests on the show last week, actually 3, all of whom disagree with me and you, who felt that, it's just make-believe, and people see that stuff in other countries, and they don't shoot up classrooms. I think we're missing something by not looking really closely at what Hollywood is producing, not just in film, but on TV and in video, and trying to understand how that affects especially young, impressionable minds. But gosh, all of us are affected by it. I think to say that it's make-believe and so it doesn't have any impact on us is just a denial of human nature. I think you're right about that, Ed. And the social science community agrees with you too on that. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a policy paper on media violence, and that is probably the best online resource in terms of bringing together all of the research going back 40 years on media violence. And the research, social science research, is conclusive. It's persuasive beyond any reasonable doubt that there is a cause and effect factor. Media violence does cause real world violence. There's no doubt about that. So I'd like to see that study, Mike. If you could send that to me at Fallon Forum at gmail.com. I'd like to take a look at that.
Okay, I'll be happy to send it to you, Ed. Happy to do that.
All right, and again, just in summary, again, Obama didn't even begin. I mean, he didn't address this issue at all.
Well,
what do you think could be done? What do you think could be done on the issue of media violence?
Well, what Obama did was he made some recommendations to Congress in terms of recommending that Congress fund further research on through the Center for Disease Control, and that's necessary because the Congress or the House in particular had blocked research into gun violence by the Centers for Disease Control.
But I'm talking research. It sounds like you're saying research into the influence of violence in the media on people is pretty well documented. You're saying that?
Well, it is. There could be more research about and more research on violent video games in particular would be helpful, simply because those are so new and they're still developing.
But isn't it time? I mean, just as it is time for action on gun control and on mental health, attending to those with mental illness, isn't it also time for action on media violence? Don't we know enough?
It is. We do know enough.
So what should Obama be doing on this issue? What should he be proposing in conjunction with that gun control plan?
I think he should be very publicly calling out Hollywood on the amount and nature of violence in media programming, and he didn't do that. All he did was call for more research and funding for more research, and the Congress will have to approve that. And there's no guarantee that Congress will, and it has in the past blocked the CDC funding for research on gun violence.
So, and why is that? Is it because of the amount of Hollywood money in politics, particularly coming, to? I mean, I'm assuming it comes more heavily to Democratic candidates.
I think it is.
Interesting.
I do think that's part of it. Democrats, typically have been unwilling to look at media violence for First Amendment issues. Because there's this belief that the First Amendment protects any kind of expression.
Right. But we still come back to the issue. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Exactly. And what we have is these huge media corporations, which are extremely socially influential, that pump this violent media content into American popular culture with criminal abandon.
Right.
And this is not a First Amendment right. This is big corporations sheltering behind the First Amendment in much the same way that the firearms industry and its lobbying arm, the NRA, shelter behind the Second Amendment.
Well, Michael, I sure could have used you last week when I had 3 of my guests beating up on me. Hey, thank you for your phone call, and do send me that research if you could.
I'll do it, Ed.
All right, we'll get one more phone call in before we go to a break here. Let's go to line 1. Who do we got, Maddie? Frank. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Hey, Ed, you get the bonus this week. I have a little break from spit and polishing the housing market. So
I don't know what any of that means, but what's on your mind?
Well, you're wrong in so many areas except for the Hollywood bit. I don't know where to start with you, but I assume you wouldn't have any problem with the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, or Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton running around purporting to speak for the black race and defending their rights.
I think if you are a member of a constituency group, you have some, de facto capacity to speak for yourself as a member of that group. You certainly don't speak for the entire community. Whether it's the black community, the gay and lesbian community, the Irish community, Irish American community, there are going to be differences of opinion.
Okay, there's all kinds of lobbying groups and all kinds of groups out there. As far as I know, the NRA doesn't receive any public money that I'm aware of. If they are, I haven't heard of it.
No, but they sure receive a lot of support from Congress and state legislatures and governors because of the money they dole out on candidates.
What are they doing wrong in trying to speak for gun ownership in this country and defend the principles of the Second Amendment?
That's fine, Frank. But what they did was, you surely, come on, you got to agree with Chris Christie.
There's a McDonald's over by East High that there is cops in the McDonald's at East High.
Frank, what do you think of the ad that the NRA did?
There's cops at Dahl's grocery stores. There's cops all over.
Let me ask you, Frank, what do you think of the NRA's ad attacking Obama and using his children as the focus of that ad?
What about Sarah Palin's children? You want to go down that avenue? I mean, we were told not to bring.
So you disagree with Chris Christie? You think
stood up and told us not to bring politicians' children into it, but yet he sat by and let Sarah Palin's children be savaged in the media and didn't say so much as a word.
Okay. You're kind of distracting from the conversation here. So you think Chris Christie was out of line by calling the NRA's attack ad despicable?
Chris Christie's not my spokesman. Chris Christie has some good qualities, but Chris Christie's not my spokesman.
Okay, so basically, you support the NRA's ad. You thought it was okay.
Well, look, let me ask you a question. If some president, it doesn't have to be Obama, but if some president was put in prison for 5 years, would a or a group of Secret Service agents have to do the same 5 years to protect him?
I have no idea why that makes any sense at all, Frank.
Because his life's protected, his children's lives are protected, his wife's lives are protected, and the NRA is simply pointing out if it's good enough to protect your lives with armed force if need be, deadly force if need be, why is it so out of the realm for us to put armed security in schools, armed security in schools to protect our children?
Okay,
are our children as good as your children? That's the point that was being made.
Frank, I got to run to a break, and I think you're totally missing the point. But we can talk more. We're going to talk more about this issue next week. I'm afraid it's not going away.
Well, probably I'll be back on the housing market next week. So if I can talk to you, possibly. But
good luck with that.
Huh?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Folks. I'm going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about medical marijuana in a few minutes. And before we end the show, though, I've got a Super Bowl comment to make. I'm going to save it for the end of the next segment. I do want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our show. ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. You should give Tim a shout, folks, either at his website, at his email address, on his website, or by phone at 802-2801, 802-2801. Tim will do an energy audit for you that will cost you nothing. It'll take probably 2 or 3 hours. It's very thorough. I had one done. Very, very thorough. And he will inevitably find ways in which you are wasting energy and losing money. So again, give him a shout. It's a free audit. Thank him for supporting the Fallon Forum. And thank yourself for doing your part to address climate change. But again, you're going to benefit because you'll find out ways you can actually save bucks. That's Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions at 802-2801. I'll be back in a few minutes. Ray Lakers is going to join me as we talk medical marijuana.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizzo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The fighting burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
The sweet sounds and melodious voice of Max Wellman, folks. The Max Wellman Trio performing two concerts on Valentine's Day, one at 7 p.m., one at 9 p.m. And get tickets at maxwellmanmusic.com. I recommend doing it sooner rather than later because I suspect they will both sell out. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio for this program. I want to thank Maddie Arrington and Chris DeBolt for operating the board today. Remind you that Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30. And just a quick look ahead next week. Of course, Monday is Martin Luther King Day. And this broadcast will be occurring at the same time as an event to help push the issue of immigrants being allowed to have driver's licenses. We're going to talk about that a little bit while the event's actually going on. Mostly Monday. Next week, we're going to focus on we're going to talk about Whole Foods. Whole Foods and their CEO's comparison of Obamacare to fascism. Anyway, we're also going to talk more next week about guns. Cheryl Thomas with Iowans Against Gun Violence is going to join us. And health on Thursday, we're going to have quite a discussion about healthcare. Healthcare is under the microscope again, this time because Wellmark was allowed to issue a huge, they were given a huge increase. 12% increase in premiums, and people are outraged. Jack Hatch, State Senator Jack Hatch, going to join us, and also State Representative Dan Kelly. And on Friday, Andrew Rasmussen will join us. We'll talk about education. I want to remind folks, too, You can get all previous shows are available on my website, fallonforum.com. I've got both video podcasts, but if you really don't want to look at how goofy my hat looks, you can just listen to the show. There's a listen option, an audio only option, and you can also listen to the show on Stitcher, something I have no clue about, but I am now signed up to do Stitcher. So anyway, all sorts of good news. Before I remind you about the Super Bowl, not that you need any reminders, I want to talk with Ray Lakers. Ray, I met Ray a bunch of years ago. We've seen interesting developments on the issue of marijuana in the last election, with states like Colorado and Washington basically saying, in one case for medicinal purposes, in the other case wide open. So the conversation almost seems to be moving beyond the issue of medicinal use to just legalizing. We're nowhere near that yet, but that seems to be where it's heading. But the medicinal element is still an important conversation, Ray. Tell us why it's important to you.
Well, for me, it's important. 9 years ago, this month, I had my first MS attack. I woke up and I couldn't move my leg, and a lot of people thought I had a stroke. And after numerous tests, going back and forth to the doctor, it came back 100%. I have multiple sclerosis, and I've regained the mobility in my leg. I really have to maintain my energy level and the things I do. But when I was diagnosed with MS, the doctors wanted to prescribe me, addictive drugs that I knew were addictive and that I knew that I would become addicted to. And
what kinds of drugs are we talking about?
Opiate prescription painkillers, and then antidepressants that have
terrible side effects.
Terrible side effects that some are listed as suicidal side effects. And you're going to ask somebody that is aware of the dangers of these drugs to take these drugs to make themselves feel better. And in turn, I discovered a whole new world of MS patients that are using cannabis as an alternate therapy for their health, most notable Montel Williams.
Okay.
And so I really gravitated to him and his efforts of lobbying, and I've been campaigning to get him to come to Iowa since then.
That'd be all right.
This was 2004 when I was diagnosed, and I was arrested in 2005 for possession of less than a gram of marijuana.
So, okay, and you were using it for medicinal purposes,
correct?
And yet you were arrested. What did you did you spend time in prison or jail?
No, just I had to do 6 days in jail to get off of probation, because under the probation requirements is the substance abuse treatment and then being able to pass clean urinalysis and things like that. And basically jump through the hoops. But the reality is the people that really have serious substance abuse problems, they're able to get through the drug testing and things like that because those substances only stay in your body for a couple of days.
Right.
The thing about drug testing, it basically just outs the cannabis consumer. And the thing is, as a patient here in the state of Iowa and somebody that's been lobbying since 2006 is when I first went up to the Capitol and signed up and registered as a lobbyist. We've been, myself and other patients, we're asking that, those in the media to, and those supporting medical marijuana in the state of Iowa to not make jokes about our conditions.
So now there is legislation being proposed, I believe, by Bruce Hunter.
Right, it was just filed.
What would that do specifically?
Well, it would offer access to medical marijuana patients in the form of either having your own caregiver produce the marijuana for you, or you could go to a state-regulated distribution center, dispensary, so to say. It wouldn't be like a full-blown California-style thing or anything like that, but.
So what's your assessment of the prospects of that legislation passing?
Well, of course, with Terry Branstad stating that he's going to veto any progressive marijuana bill in the state of Iowa, we basically don't have a chance.
Right.
But here's the thing. Since Bruce Hunter filed that bill, the Governor's Office of Drug Control Policy, they filed 2 bills too, more restrictive bills on marijuana. One of them will restrict your possession. If you have possession of 3 grams or less, you could be, or 3 grams or more, you can be classified as a dealer. Right now, it's 7 grams is the threshold as a dealer classification. They want to lower it down to 3 grams. So, in turn, Terry Branstad wants to increase the incarceration rates in our state prisons.
So, and I know there are lots of people in prison for
There's
for
300 in the state of Iowa that are in prison.
Specifically for marijuana?
Yeah, that are doing time, not just county time, state time.
So in the prison system.
So that's $50,000 a year each person.
Well, that's probably high. It's probably more like 30,000 maybe, but
right,
still,
but
it's a lot of money.
It's all residual. It's all residual, and it all creates a tax base if you don't spend it.
Well, it's a waste of money. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, there's
Bottom
no doubt
line,
about
it's
that.
a waste of money.
Yeah.
But
So-
here's my position. I wanted to mention about that these medical conditions that myself and many people I've networked through that may have glaucoma, or many have MS that I've met. Some have Crohn's disease. We're not. It's not to be joked about. Our conditions aren't to be joked about. We're not trying to smoke dope. Now, like the doctor that hosted your show the last time with the two young gentlemen, the one from ISU, those are well-spoken gentlemen.
Charles Goldman. Yeah.
And I appreciate the doctor giving us his endorsement for medical use of marijuana, but I didn't appreciate his condescending, just an excuse to go smoke dope. Okay, because we say nope to FDA dope.
Well, I didn't, and I wasn't. He was subbing for me, so I don't remember. And I did watch the show, but I don't remember that.
Well, it's just the puns and the jokes.
But there are people who
jokes
say
are
that.
hurtful.
Yeah, and there are people who do say that. They think that, well,
just smoking dope.
Folks who claim medicinal interests are really just wanting to use it recreationally.
Right, but
that claim is made.
You're looking at a living clinical trial.
Yeah.
I take no prescription medicine at all.
And yet you were done. That was done originally. Originally, they gave you opiates. It had horrible effects on you.
I've taken steroid treatments.
And so and you've been using marijuana for what, 5 years now?
9 years.
9 years now. Okay.
For to treat my multiple sclerosis. I'm not going to sit here and deny that I never used marijuana, but when I found out that it was a very safe and effective way to treat my condition,
right.
Of course I was able to not have a fear of it, because somebody should not have a fear of marijuana.
Yeah. So, are you again? I understand the wisdom of not having a fear of marijuana, but what about a fear of the law? Are there any repercussions for you? Are there any risks that you run legally?
That's part of the problem, is coming openly as a public advocate. So you pretty much open yourself up to the possibilities of somebody using that against you to bring harm to you, yourself, or your family.
I mean, in here, I appreciate your advocacy and your outspokenness, and here you are in front of a camera on a talk show discussing this.
I used to have an online show. I was in the studio originally,
yeah,
Remax Studios with Carl. And
okay, with Carl Olson, sure. Carl's Cannabis Corner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have any concern about possible? Maybe somebody in Sheriff McCarthy's watching the show, thinking, let's get that guy.
I've met Sheriff McCarthy at the Polk County Community Conversations last summer. I participated in that with all the Polk County supervisors.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned in a report to Sheriff McCarthy.
And how do they feel about your medicinal use of marijuana?
Well, they're saying that they're not the ones in charge of making the laws.
Okay, but they're the one in charge of enforcing the law.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do? Are their hands tied?
Basically, they you need to talk to the lawmakers.
They're kind of looking the other way, aren't they? I mean, it got to. I mean, you were arrested once years ago, but now people are kind of looking the other way. Law enforcement is looking the other way for the most part, right? I mean, it still should. I still totally agree that the law needs to be changed, and we ought to have it. It ought to be totally legal. And if nothing else, we could start with medicinal marijuana.
Well, there's no law against freedom of speech.
Well, no, but there certainly are restrictions on it, as I've discovered myself.
Yes, there are. And there are laws against civil disobedience and doing certain things in public and things like that. And
yeah.
Well, I come from a different culture. I come from a culture of a group of individuals, a large group of individuals all over the state of the United States, that some things are just passé.
I think you should be able to find support among Republicans. Maybe not Terry Branstad, but again, I introduced the medical marijuana bill in 1993. Way before it was. I mean, it was a really bad. It was considered a really, really bad political idea for me to do that back then. But Carl was actually a constituent of mine. I wanted to make sure his voice was heard, that his ideas had representation. I introduced the bill, and I found out as I continued to introduce legislation to that effect every couple years, every term, I found that I was getting support from Republicans who were libertarian, but also in some cases there was one Republican whose clerk had benefited from from the use of marijuana or I think she might have had a friend who'd benefited from the use of marijuana for a medical problem. And so, even among Republicans, there are those who understand the value of this drug.
Mm-hmm. And if Governor Branstad of Iowa is so sincere about his war on drugs, why doesn't he restrict the sale of energy drinks to children? Caffeine's a drug, and pop cans contain 10 times more than the recommended one day, and 10 children have had heart attacks, and 7 have died in the state of Iowa. So, yeah. And again, what about the old people? That's my reply when they all say, well, what kind of message is it that we're sending to the young adults? I say, well, what about the old people that I personally know that have left Iowa, that are retired, that have moved to Colorado, and they were given a short amount to live under prescription medication. Now they've kicked themselves from the FDA drugs. Some of them have weaned themselves off of drugs like methadone. My friend Jeff, who moved to Colorado, he's retired, 59 years old, and he has a stomach condition where it causes a paralyzed stomach, and the only release he feels is from cannabis. And he was on methadone because he was an opiate addict from prescribing. He got to Colorado, and now he kicked the habit. So what about the old people that are living longer, that are spending time with their grandkids, and that are not in the grave? That's what they want to do, is they want to put people in their grave, the state of Iowa does.
Well, and again, I think there are some allies, but there are certainly some people who are still opposed and not really up to
they need to educate themselves on the plan.
Yep, and we need to do our part too. And
Iowa medical marijuana patients, we are in the minority of cannabis consumers in the state of Iowa. Since I came out in public in 2006, all I can do is point people the direction of where to get legally in other states. I can't help anybody. Right. I got advocates soliciting me that I don't know personally, asking me for services.
I got to wrap up the show, Ray. Thank you for joining us,
all right.
And good luck. And again, folks, if you want to stay...
HF 22.
House File 22 is the legislation that Bruce Hunter has introduced.
Say no to the drug goons.
Okay, so I do want to remind you, folks. I'll be back on Monday. Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30. I'm going to be Sunday. I'm going to be rooting for Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, and I have a new theme song. We're going to go out on the show with this new theme song that I think the Patriots ought to adopt as their own.
That's the way they all became the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. That's the way they became the Brady Bunch.
It to the bone that it's good. There's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
If you can get it through the
Senate,
if
for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money-back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave. and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.